The Oval Office, the very epicenter of executive power in the federal government of these here United States of America. Just about every nationally known politician says to themselves at some point, wait until I get in there, boy, I'll show 'em. The White House, of course, is famous for its oval rooms, something that George Washington insisted on so that he could hold a ceremony known as the Levee periodically. In European monarchies, the levee was a ceremony where the king would stand in a particular place and then people would march past him. And that was facilitated, in Washington's view, by having an oval room. And the person in charge would stand at the far end of the room, and then people would enter in and walk past that person and then go back out again. And this is why there are oval rooms at the White House, despite the fact that Washington never lived to see the White House completed. So let's take a look at how the oval room idea of the levee translated itself into the West Wing of the White House. U.S. presidents from Madison to McKinley had their offices in the area that is today occupied by the Lincoln Bedroom. When McKinley was assassinated, his successor, Teddy Roosevelt, in 1902, had Charles McKim design a temporary office building at the end of the West Wing. It was a small rectangular building with a lobby and a big staff room over here. Cabinet room was over here. And the president's office, a little fireplace. This was the lobby up here. McKim put a bow front window in the president's secretary's office right here. And this is the beginnings of the oval shape in the West Wing. Roosevelt's office was a square with walls covered in an olive-stained burlap. And this sufficed for a time until President Taft moved in, and in 1909, he demanded an expansion of the building. The building was expanded to its present footprint, which really added a lot of space. There were lots more waiting rooms all over the place. Their secretary's office was over here, and the cabinet room was over here. And the president's Oval Office, for the first time, was put in the center with its own little fireplace. Taft's Oval Office was covered in the same olive green burlap as Roosevelt's office had been. All went well until a disastrous fire occurred on Christmas Eve, 1929, with Herbert Hoover's family scrambling to save all the presidential papers. They rebuilt it almost immediately, but FDR had other plans. In 1934, Roosevelt's policy of putting people to work envisioned rebuilding the West Wing with a steel frame and a second floor, providing much more office space. So the inside of the West Wing has changed a great deal over the years. There's no rhyme or reason. Lots of things change, and Roosevelt room moves, and this, that, and the other thing. Lobby, and so on. But the main thing that happened after they moved the Oval Office is that they built a new Oval Office off to the side. And Roosevelt liked this because it allowed him to more privacy. So he could exit and enter the Oval Office from the side, from the garden. And they also constructed a much larger cabinet room up here. FDR's decorations of his office is impressively manly, but one thing that you might recognize is that there's no resolute desk. That was optional. It had been used in the former president's offices upstairs in the Lincoln bedroom on and off for a long time. It was up to the president himself as to whether he wanted to use it or not. Presidents are given a budget with which to decorate the Oval as they wish. Some work with decorators, others do not. All the drapes, furniture, and carpets are retained by the White House. They're cataloged and available for future decorations. If you don't like any of the carpets that are available, for example, you can always design and have woven one of your own. Vast collection of paintings may be used also. Because the Oval Office is constantly changing, my ground rules are that I draw the most recent version, which in this case is President Biden's decorations. I begin by mapping out the Oval Office and the cabinet room and setting my vantage point. Then I move on to drawing the plan in perspective and then extrude the walls up and down. Then I put in the openings for the doors and windows and the bookcases. And then we can start decorating. White House watchers attach a lot of significance to the paintings that presidents hang up in the Oval Office. Around the fireplace, Biden has hung up the portraits of Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt, Hamilton, and Jefferson. On one side of the resolute desk, Biden has hung up a painting from 1917 by the Impressionist painter Childe Hassam called Avenue in the Rain. A number of presidents have hung this painting up in the Oval Office. It's very, very elegant. Also in the Biden Oval Office, he's installed a number of bronze busts of his heroes, various people, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, Lincoln, Truman, Rosa Parks, Cesar Chavez, and Eleanor Roosevelt. In my composition, I only have to worry about Kennedy, Parks, and Lincoln. I only draw an approximation of the space that they're going to belong in because it's the pen version that really makes the difference. So I don't get too fussy about it in the pencil. Behind the desks of many of the presidents are end tables with a flotilla of personal photographs on it, and Biden is no exception. I did my drawing before he moved this bust of Cesar Chavez to the back of the table, so he's not there in my drawing. President Biden has also chosen to stay with what is known as the Trump wallpaper. The pattern is quite elaborate, and the easiest way for me to deal with its elaborateness is to break it down and sketch it as where I see the pattern repeating. And then I count up how many times the pattern repeats over the surface of the wall, and then I draw a grid pattern that contains that many repeats. So I'm not actually going to draw the wallpaper in the pencil. That'll just be done at the inking stage. Biden has also chosen to leave the drapes from the Trump Oval Office. These are known as the Clinton drapes because they were designed for Bill Clinton. What's interesting about the drapes is that I am making them go around the corner a little bit. I mean, I'm drawing them in a very curved view, and it's very confusing for me. So the Oval Office drawing is also connected to the private secretaries of the president. He's got 3 of them in that little tiny room now, as well as the cabinet room. Planning on doing a more fulsome view of the cabinet room, so part of it is showing in this one. In our next chapter, we're going to color in the Oval Office drawing, and I hope you can join us. If you're finding these videos interesting, please subscribe to the channel if you would. Until next time, thank you for your attention. Bye-bye.